All right. Hi, everybody. We will let you all start filing in. It's great to be here. Um, while people are joining us, if this is your first one, what we usually like to do is at the beginning, just click on the chat, make sure it says to everyone, and let us know where you're joining us from. It's always fun to see how far and wide our audience comes from. I'm personally not even in my home city right now. I'm usually in Brooklyn, New York, but I happen to be working in from our Miami office today. Um, all right, we got Queens, St. Louis, Chattanooga, Pittman, New Jersey, Oregon, Brooklyn, Charlotte, Denver, Boca Raton, right up the street from where I am. Miami, actually up the street from where I am. Toronto, Phoenix, Chicago, Queen Creek, Arizona. All right, they'll keep coming in. Um, While we're doing this, I'm going to also launch a poll because people are still filing in. And if you can answer this question, it's always good to see where people are at in their mindset of today's topic. Um, and then we will get to everything. Um, but I'll also introduce myself. I'm Michael. I'm co-founder of Lalo. I'm joined by Jordyn, who is the founder of Eat Play Say, and that's at Eat Play Say on Instagram and all channels as well if you want to check out her amazing content. Um, and we're gonna dive into a really important topic because if you haven't set your New Year's resolution for yourself, we're gonna set it for your kids right now. Um, I actually am not sure if I'm joining this as a moderator or just a guest today because I think I need this for me and my kids personally. All right.
A lot of good stuff to share.
Okay. Look, it's like 50-50. So 45% of you are like, I'm good. Like, or I'm sorry, 55% of you say we're pretty good, but who doesn't want to improve? And then 45% need the help. So we're gonna jump to it. We're here to talk about healthy eating habits for your kids and how to approach that. But before we do that, two more housekeeping items. During all of these virtual events, we always save time at the end for questions. The best way to put in questions is at the bottom of the screen. You can see the little Q&A. It's in a little speech bubble with a question mark. Always put your questions there. We miss them when they go in the chat. The chat gets crazy. People are commenting just during the show. So put it in the Q&A, and that's our best way to find your questions and answer as many as we can get to. Um, and then lastly, we always do a giveaway. So thank you for joining us. And at the end of the event, we will announce a winner who will win a $100 gift card as well as one of Jordyn's amazing handbooks of your choice. So that's about $175 value to the winner. So stay here till the end till we make that announcement. You got to be here to win it. But now we'll get to the question, Jordyn. Are you ready? You good?
I'm ready. I've been
Okay.
ready.
Okay.
Yes.
So healthy eating is obviously like a broad term. It's an idea, but it can mean a lot of things. There are definitely a lot of ways to approach the idea of healthy eating for your little ones. In your mind, like what are maybe some of like the basic or simple tips to like go about preparing meals and offering foods that promote healthy eating?
Yeah, I think we kind of all get a little scared of the word healthy because it's like, what does it mean? And depending on your dietary, restrictions or your culture, it could look different. So a more concrete way to talk about healthy eating is to just focus on real food. So that is foods that naturally occur. People think about it like shopping the outside of the grocery store, your produce, your dairy, your meats, vegetables, fruits, and not spending so much time in the inside of the grocery store aisles, which is where the processed foods are. And then when you are in those inside aisles, because we can't always just get everything from the outside of the grocery store, looking at the ingredients and seeing that those first ingredients really are those real foods. So if something's sweet, it's made from fruit. If something's high in protein, that protein is coming from an animal source or from a plant source like chickpeas or lentils or something that's higher in protein. So focusing on real food, ingredients you can pronounce, and things that are just naturally occurring. It's really that simple, I feel.
So not Doritos.
Not Doritos, even though I hit those hard in college. Not Doritos.
Oh man. Okay, but and so like if you're trying to think about putting together meals for your family or at least for your little one, if you're not all eating the same thing at the same time, what does a well-balanced meal look like? I mean, I've heard that phrase probably since like elementary health class or whatever, but like a well-balanced meal, what does that even mean? What does that look like? How can I think about preparing that for my little one?
Yeah, so I know a lot of people think about the food pyramid when we talk about like well balanced, but let's just put that aside since everyone's arguing about that right now anyway. It's very simple. It's just fat, protein, and carbs. We really want to look at those three parts of the meal. And carbs, even though they get a bad name, really should be the bulk as our energy source. So 50% of our meal can really be from carbs. We just want those carbs to come from real foods. And I don't know about you if you're a toddler parent or you're going broke on berries. My berry bill is like insane. It's like a phone bill because kids love fruits. So try to surround those fruits, which are carbs, with a protein source like yogurt, and then with a fat source as well, like cheese or something else. So instead of just focusing on carbs, 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 try to add those protein and fat sources to balance the blood sugar out. And that really is what's well balanced, just those three things.
Yeah. So when you think about the balance of that, is that like you should think about that for every meal? You should think about that throughout the day? Is that like talk to us a little bit about that?
Yeah, when you are eating a larger meal, so if you just want to focus on your three squares, definitely try because that's a bigger meal. So if it's completely carb heavy, it's going to throw a blood sugar spike up. Littles are going to get cranky, they're going to get wound up. They're also going to run through that energy source very quickly. We want to have protein so that it lasts longer in the body. And then we want to have fats because those are the brain food. We want, um, all three parts of those. If you're doing a snack, a lot of littles just really want to have fruit. That's okay, especially if another meal is coming soon. But try if you can to offer something else to balance out. So it's not, three fruit bars or, so many strawberries and nothing else.
Right. Yeah, it's interesting. I want to actually talk about snacks because personally, I love snacks. The snacks are my, I don't know, like
Your
snack.
vice.
Oh, for sure. I love them. So maybe they're like, yeah, I guess other people may call it my vice, but they're my love language. Um, but snacks obviously get us through the day. They stop tantrums, they are filler, but they can impact meal consumption and getting through a well-balanced meal. How do you think, like, what's a healthy way to think about snacking and the kinds of snack foods, when to give snacks, and how do you give snacks without them impacting having those well-balanced meals during mealtime?
Yeah, it's funny. I read a statistic recently that 42% of daily added sugar intake in toddlers and school-age children is coming from processed snacks. So when we're thinking about snacks, we want to try to limit added sugar or offer foods that have natural sugars in them. So those fruits, vegetables. Snacks aren't bad. I'm also somebody who eats kind of like five little meals a day. Some people do better with that. As long as you're offering well balanced, not every single snack is a cube of cheese over the entire day. It's
Yeah.
really not the problem. Everyone is on go, go, go. So the sitting down for three meals a day may not be attainable for a lot of families. I know it's not attainable for us every single day. So as long as you're trying to think about the snack options that you're offering your little one, that they're coming from real foods, that you have some protein with your fat and your carbs, I really wouldn't worry about it. And if your little one wants a little bit more and it's real food, then give them what they're asking for, is what I say.
Yeah. Um, this isn't a question we prepared for, Jordyn, but it just came to mind off what you're saying. And something that I've experienced is like the idea of food rules. Like, do you recommend having food rules like your kid knows like this is what we eat and what we not don't eat, or more being go with the flow, like what's there? Because it's hard to control every environment your kid ends up in and what's available to them, whether that's play date, birthday party, you name it. And I've experienced personally, we don't have food rules. My kids often will choose like the healthy thing over. It surprises me every time. Like I'm like, I want the pretzels and the Oreos, but they choose berries or carrots or something like that. And then we've been around more strict food rule families that the kid sees that Oreo and they're trying to eat 20 of them.
Right.
I don't know in your professional experience if like that's just a lived experience I've seen, or if like if there's a right or a wrong or a way to balance that. So like your kid understands what is healthy and how to make healthy choices um,
Mhm.
without creating like a false sense of or strictness or like the opposite result of what you'd expect.
Yeah, the first thing is I try not to label any foods as good or bad. Obviously, if there's an allergy, we need to be really firm about, hey, this food does not do a lot of goodness for our body and it can harm us. So we don't eat this food, but maybe other people do. I like to talk about what foods do for the body. I have a 3 year old starting to, he's been through Halloween. He kind of knows what's going on, always asks for a snack when we're about to have dinner. And I always tell him these are the foods that we should eat first because they do the most for our body. They fill up our tummy, they give us that energy to go play when dinner's over. And once we have that in our stomach, then we can add on those fun snack foods on top. Because if our stomach's empty and we have those fun snack foods, it doesn't do a lot of good for us and it could actually make us feel all weird. So just talking about like why we're offering meat, like this is going to give you so much energy. It's going to give you strength. It's going to help you sleep through the night, hopefully. And then, these foods are sweet. They taste really good. And they also give us a lot of vitamins and minerals, fruit. These foods help us sit in our belly for a long time and really help us digest all of our food. And then when we go to the bathroom later, it comes out, who doesn't love a poop joke? So just talking kind of about what foods do, what their purpose is a really great way to kind of set those boundaries of we really should be eating these foods first, and then we can have these foods later.
Yeah, I love that. Um, cool. All right, I have a couple more questions that I have pre-prepared for Jordyn, but now is a good time to start throwing your questions in the Q&A. I see some that have already come in, so thank you. We'll get to those shortly. I think that there's one nutrient that comes up as maybe a point of anxiety, or it's been brought up by pediatricians, I'm sure, to some of the folks in the audience, which is iron.
Mhm.
Um, Personally, my kids both like it came up, they're iron deficient, they need more iron, blah blah blah. What are good ways to work that in to ensure, and like how serious is that? Like how seriously should we be taking that as parents?
Yeah, I think it's something to be aware of. I think we should be aware, but we shouldn't be scared. So we know around 6 months of age when babies are starting solids, their iron stores start to deplete. So it's important that the foods we're offering when starting solids and into toddlerhood are really iron rich. So trying to offer foods that have iron in them every day, a little bit in every meal would be ideal, but we know that that's probably not going to happen, and that's okay. I think it's also important to know that the scary part, right, is that the iron needs of these babies are higher than the iron needs of yourself or mine. And when babies are just having a few little tablespoons of puree or a couple bites of a soft solid, as a parent, you're like, how the heck am I going to get 7, milligrams of iron in them when I can't? So trying to just take a breath, know that it's a marathon, not a sprint, and just keeping these foods in rotation is doing the best that you can. We know that animal-based foods are higher in iron. So if you eat animal-based foods, that's great. Offering foods like a beef patty that they can gnaw on, hard-boiled eggs, the yolk whipped up with breast milk or formula. And if you eat more plant-based foods, hummus, chickpeas are really high in iron, lentils. There's a lot of different recipes and things. I think we're publishing a blog after this too that's going to have some things listed out. I also have an iron blog on my website that lists the top foods that are high in iron and how to serve them. So just try once a day to offer these iron foods and talk with your pediatrician. You'll likely get a blood sample around 9 or 12 months at the well visit, and they can kind of tell you about iron. So don't stress, just be informed.
Love that. Okay. Last question from me, and then we're gonna get to wow, they're coming in. Okay. Um,
Yay.
Vegetables.
Oh, yeah.
Organic berries are no problem, but vegetables could be an issue. For parents that want to get vegetables into that diet consistently,
Mhm.
any tricks, tips, hacks, thoughts?
Yeah.
Spill the beans.
Yeah. Vegetables are the best foods to play with. And if they're not eating them anyway, playing with them is a great step, even if it feels wasteful. That is a really good step to get them to actually start to eat them. So there's a lot of really hard vegetables like celery, carrots that are fun to just like crack and make noise, use them as spoons instead of offering a regular spoon. Make some type of like snowman type thing with mashed potatoes and stick the different hard vegetables in there. So it is including your little one in the kitchen cooking with vegetables. If you're making a soup, having them sprinkle in some of the harder vegetables, they might surprise you and actually take a bite. And I think it's also important to remember that a lot of vegetables have a sweetness to them. So like your squashes, your zucchini, your eggplant, They have a little bit more sweetness with them. So starting with those foods, especially if your little one is obsessed with fruits, is a good way to kind of bridge to those other vegetables. But don't worry, making a smoothie is honestly my main tip. I love smoothies. We have a whole free smoothie guide on our website because I love them so much. Avocado, spinach, kale, all of those things, helping your little one, putting them all in the smoothie. They get to blend their creation and then they're drinking their vegetables. That's not a bad thing. As I say, as long as your little one is aware of what's going into the drink, you're not tricking them. You're
Yeah.
including them in what's going on and then they can eat it.
Yeah. I agree with all that. And I also found that personally that as they got older, toddler age, 18 months plus, they're able to get in their tower, be at the counter as well. I'm also a big cook, but while we're cooking, that involvement of the different foods being around,
Yes.
that exposure is a moment to introduce in a less pressured moment than
Mhm.
at the table or in their high chair. That feels very pressureful, but we're making soup. I'm making a soup, and can you help me chop this carrot with your kid's knife? And why don't you try one? Is a lot less daunting than sitting them down, and this is now part of your meal. So
Exactly. You know,
that's my
it's funny.
experience.
I polled my audience on Instagram what was the top toy or top item that you got your little one for Christmas, and it was a toddler tower, hands down.
Well,
And I
I
think
can
it's
tell you that that's true because we sold out of ours very, very fast,
yeah,
unexpectedly. We thought we had enough, so much so that we had more coming and had them on back order for people to ship later. And we sold out of everything that was on back order for people. And if you're one of those people, we are so, so sorry because the ship with them got delayed and they came a week later and some people missed Christmas gifts. And we are so sorry about that. But it was so popular this Christmas, insane. So we just launched it in Sage now, which is awesome.
I have it. It's
And there are a
beautiful.
lot more coming in because I think that it's been a trend over the last couple of years for people to have this as a kitchen staple, but it's not going anywhere, right? They're sticking around.
Yeah, I think the exposure part is true. 20 to 100 exposures of a food is sometimes what it takes to get a little one to eat them. My daughter, eggs, she finally started eating eggs at 21 months. You betcha I offered her eggs every day of her life from 6 months on. And now she's finally eating them because I just gave her opportunities to be around eggs. And look how long that took.
Yeah.
So don't give up. Keep the foods around. Don't say negative things about them. Don't try to push it in their mouth.
Yep.
Um, just let them explore.
I've also found recently as my kids have gotten older, I have a son who's 2.5 and a daughter who's about to be 5, that they are now like it used to be I could just give them the same thing every day, and now they're going through more cycles of like getting tired of something, so you like introducing new things is actually helpful, to
Yes.
keeping the
It's called
rotation
a food
fresh.
rut. You get in a
Yeah,
rut. Yeah.
yeah.
Try to
So
spice that rut up a bit.
yeah. Okay, we're gonna get to these questions, and I apologize because there's no way we're getting to all of these because there are so many. But keep them coming in. What I do is I scan and I try to combine ones that are similar. So, um, okay, this one is the most interesting one. So, because I don't even know what it is. So,
I hope
um,
I know what it is.
but my guess, yeah, we'll find out. My guess is this person is not happy about the TikTok ban, but.
Oh,
Questions from RC. How do you feel about the butter before bed trend that's all over social media to help your kids get to sleep?
I said this in our last webinar. I'm not cool enough for TikTok, but I have migrated over there a little bit. So I
Okay.
do actually know what this is. So there's this video of this mom who's literally slicing from a stick of butter and offering her little one butter before bed. Butter, honestly, is a really great brain food. It is. Is it going to actually get your little one to sleep through the night? No, but I do see the point that she's trying to make where we want little ones to have a full stomach, not just a bunch of carbs before they go to bed. I have given my little ones sticks of or little slices of butter to chew on or have while I'm
Yeah.
cooking dinner because they're at my, legs here. So it's not bad to do that, but I wouldn't bank on that. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah. I it does feel like a little bit of a
If it was that
one of
easy,
those social
we
media. You're
wouldn't be
better off
having this
making like
webinar.
those recipes that people try on social. But I'm guilty too of giving butter. My daughter could eat an entire stick of butter.
Yeah.
Okay, it's from an anonymous attendee. And on the topic of food rules, how do you feel about setting rules that are about setting this is a breakfast food versus this is a dinner food. For example, a hamburger or hot dog isn't a great breakfast choice compared to pancakes or scrambled eggs. Is this a battle I shouldn't fight or because it doesn't really matter, or should I actually care?
Yeah, personally, I wouldn't care. I think that why have we labeled a hot dog as a dinner food? Like, why not? If you just look at the ingredients and you just look at the fat, protein, or carb profile of foods, it really doesn't matter. I've eaten sushi for breakfast, because that's what I wanted at the time. I think that we have to 1,000% pick our battles with kids, and there are going to be a lot of food battles. And there are hills that you should want to die on, and there are hills that you don't want to die on, especially at 6:30 in the morning. You don't want to start off the day dying on that hill.
Yeah.
So I would offer some options, offer some breakfast foods that you feel are appropriate, and maybe meet them in the middle. I like to let my little ones pick a couple foods, and then I bring out the egg bake or the oatmeal bake or what I really feel is appropriate, and we kind of meet in the middle.
Yeah. I would also like think about the fact that a lot of these things are very culturally driven, right? Like
Hmm.
what you find out may be consumed for breakfast in another culture may not look like anything that you think of as breakfast. I've experienced that firsthand. And
Hmm.
so, there's a ton of marketing that goes into breakfast cereals, and there's also a ton of added sugar, and they're cheap and they're great, they're budget friendly options potentially. Um, but that, some of those are more candy than breakfast.
Right.
So I think, if you can reframe it and let it go, it's not a stress worth having as a parent.
Yeah,
Um, I'm
I
not
get
eating a hot dog for breakfast though. Okay. This question's from Jenna. Any tips for creating like balanced daycare, preschool lunches or options when there's no refrigeration option?
Oh, gosh, that's a good one. First, I would ask if there's any plans for that for refrigeration or really getting a good lunchbox that has the ice pack in it. There's actually a lunchbox that you physically put the lunchbox in the freezer and the whole thing freezes from the bottom. I would look into that because that is really limiting, especially if your little one's going every day for a long period of time. They're eating most of their meals during the week at daycare. We do kind of want to have that mixture. There are some like Amara, for example, has packets that you add water to and they become a puree and they're shelf stable because they're freeze dried. So that could be something that you're looking into if you're looking for prepackaged. Unfortunately, without refrigeration, that leaves a lot of grainy and like bready food. So I'm sure that you're having difficulty with that. So I would look into some type of refrigeration so you can try to get those dairy, the fruits and vegetables in there. I know it's hard to send like something like meat if it's not refrigerated. So that's a really hard one. Do you have any? I don't know. Have you sent
Um,
kids where you haven't
yeah,
had?
I mean, I'm maybe this is maybe more from a practical than a professional opinion,
Yeah.
but I would first ask like how long is it going to be between like if you have to drive a while to drop your kid off and then they get to school and then it's a few hours, if it's 2 or 3 hours, like ask yourself like would you be out in if you went for a road trip and you brought this without refrigeration or you were doing like would you feel comfortable? Like just because it's the idea of a meal or a lunch, like it's really about personal comfort level and risk tolerance. I mean, it depends what you're giving. I mean, we certainly send like a lot of little, cheese and kind of whole grain cracker kind of situations. My daughter's not really that into sandwiches and things like that. So it's like, and with berry, like we'll fill the bento with, berries and cheese and there's always like one chocolate chip, or something like that is her little treat. So um
I would get the ice packs. Fill up a Ziploc
yeah,
baggie of ice
yeah,
and
you can
like
always put
sprinkle
an
it
ice
all
pack, but
around.
yeah, they don't refrigerate. It sits on top of the cubby until they do it. And I mean, the other thing is like the shelf stable milk. She'll take like a just like a organic Kirkland shelf stable milk. Like, like that doesn't actually need to be refrigerated. So
Right.
that's an option too. Um, Personal choice though. Okay, from Francesca, who definitely, I guess, heard me loud and clear about Oreos and Doritos. But okay, do you allow what are your thoughts on allowing Oreos and Doritos when they're an option when they're out, even if you don't buy them in your own house? so they don't go crazy when they have a choice when they're old, like when they're around them? Like, how do you create that balance of like, this is acceptable, but it's not something we have in our house, but don't go binge it?
Yeah, that's a really great question. Typically when we're out, like at a Super Bowl party or at a birthday party or something, I try to survey what the options are. And typically there's a lot of different options, right? I'll try to pick the two best options that are there and what I feel comfortable, like, okay, I want my little one to participate in this celebration, but maybe I don't want to have them have food dye. So I'm going to scrape the icing off and then I'm going to say, yeah, here, you can have a cupcake or something. You have to find where you want to draw your line and then how you want to explain that to your little one. And they might be too little to really understand, but typically if you're giving those options of, yes, we're having snacks, you can have this one or this one from Miss Becky's house. Which one do you want? That's kind of where you can just draw it right there. And then as they get older, 5, 6, 7, 8, you can probably have some candid conversation with them about why you like to not indulge in those foods. But since you're out, we can have half of this, or we can split this up and have a little bit while we're eating. It's really hard, especially with like adult friendships, if you're great friends as parents, but somebody eats one way and you eat another way and you feel strongly about it. So definitely take all that into consideration as well. But ultimately, if another person is your friend too, from an adult standpoint, they're going to respect your wishes just like you would respect theirs.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, look, I think it's almost partially a behavioral thing than more than a like when you get to the like how do we create balance and moderation in these kinds of situations, a little bit about knowing your child's temperament and how
Yeah.
they're going to react to the way you position it more
Mhm.
than it's actually about the food itself, right? Some children you tell them you could have one are going to push for six and start the
Mhm.
negotiation. Some may be totally fine.
Yeah.
Um, some may have, like my daughter might have a bite of an Oreo and then move on. Like she doesn't have to finish the thing.
Right.
Um, so I think it's really about knowing your kid and their temperament and their reaction to your boundary or your rule that you're going to put in front of them and how you bring that to the table for them.
Mhm.
Um, but I'm not sure it's so much about the food, actually.
Yeah.
Um, but also if you don't make it seem so special or it doesn't, then like, what do they know? They've never seen Fritos before.
True.
Um, okay. A lot of people asked about that. So hopefully that got a couple of your questions. Okay. Question from Marilise. So,
Hmm.
any tips on creating of foods to add into the diet to help with constipation?
Yes. So a lot of people think that constipation is driven by fiber, and that is true, but it's actually driven by liquid. So if you eat a whole bunch of fibrous foods, and you don't drink enough, you're just adding to your problem. So the first thing you want to do is hydrate. Coconut water, regular water, if they're still drinking breast milk, formula, whatever, you want to prioritize that first. Not a whole lot of milk. A lot of milk can actually cause constipation. We really just want water and coconut water. Fruits are going to help you, especially really juicy fruits. So watermelon. Watermelon is such a cost-effective fruit. I know it's not in season right now, but when you do get it, that's great. Also, cucumbers are super watery. It's like 98% water. Peaches, apples, take the skin off. So it's not so hard for your digestive system to break down. Applesauce. This is where purees also become your friend. So many people say negative things about purees, but they are the road to a poop. I'm serious. So offer some purees at your meals. You want to get rid of the backup, and then you can slowly kind of go back to the way you were eating before.
Awesome. All right. I have time for one or two more questions here. So let me go through quickly and try to find some common threads. Um, okay. What are your thoughts on things like pouches and puffs and those kinds of quick and easy, often, positioned as like, veggie rich or, nutrient rich kind of options, by different brands?
Yeah, I think first and foremost, we have to look at the ingredients. These foods are considered processed. Typically, they're considered minimally processed because they're made from real foods. They're just shelf stable and able to be taken on the go. Um, They're not bad. I think that there's this negative connotation with snacks in general that they're so bad, but they're really not. As long as they are not making up the bulk of your little one's diet, where they are just eating processed snack foods all the time, I think they're a great tool to have in your pocket. If you have a long road trip, if you have a dentist appointment, if you're trying to sit through something like church or, where a little one has to be quiet, they're really great options. They're also better options than so many mainstream snacks. If you're getting the organic puffs or you're getting the pouches it's just organic applesauce or it's just, a fruit and a vegetable, that's a much better option than a lot of other grain first options or filler options that are on the market. I think it's also just important to have in your head, okay, limit 1 bar a day, 1 pouch a day. To make sure it's not displacing the nutrients that your little one would be getting from real foods at meals.
Awesome. Thank you. Um, I will end with, I think it's something that we kind of started with, which is the last question that I found was, is there such thing as too much fruit?
So there is such thing as too much sugar, it's and too much fruit. I feel like that threshold is really hard. Like we've never, like, I don't think anyone has ever gone to the doctor and it's like he ate too much fruit. We're having a problem. You're going to notice it in their bowels, not to be graphic, if they're having too much fruit. It's not going to be pretty. It's going to be wet and all gross. I don't need to give you the visual. That is how you're going to know that that's too much. And again, as long as you're pairing that fruit with something like carbs, with a protein, with a meat source, with hummus, with something else, and it's not just fruit, fruit, fruit all day, it's okay if fruit is really more front and center in your child's life right now. I think when we think of fruit, we constantly just think of sugar and we're missing all of the amazing minerals and vitamins that come in fruit. Fruit is more nutrient dense and rich than a lot of vegetables on the market. So it's great that our little ones want to eat them. Also, they're naturally sweet, which means naturally we want to eat them. There's a reason why we want them. So I think draw the line if you're seeing the back end having some issues there. But other than that, if you're trying to offer other foods with it, I would give yourself some grace and know you're giving your child a decent, wholesome, real food.
Yeah. Yep. Okay. I'm gonna pull the winner for the giveaway. And while I do that, I did see one person asking about tips for starting solids. I didn't answer that question because we do an entire webinar on that, and it seemed a little bit too quick to do tips on starting solids. A very loaded question. So if you're interested in that topic, I encourage you to keep an eye out for our other webinars. And while I grab it, I'd love if people could throw in the chat other topics they'd like us to see in events like this. What are kind of anxieties you have that you'd like kind of brought down in their intensity for you? If there's anything that you're worried about or thinking about constantly in your current stage, let us know in the chat. We're reading. Our team is here, and we'll take a note there. Okay. So while you're doing that, when I call out this person's name, if you could click the raise hand button below to show us that you're here. The winner is Danielle Trad. So if Danielle, if you could please raise your hand with that button. Danielle Trad. It looks like you're here, but the raise hand button is below. If you can click that so we know you actually are here. We'll give her another minute once she does that. And please no one else click that so that we can. One more second. I just messaged her to see if she's actually here. If she doesn't respond, we'll go to our runner-up. So
A lot
many
of good
great
topics.
topics, by the way. I
Yeah.
guess a lot of throwers, activities for kids, sick days. Sick day is a big one. Oh man, we had the flu. Uh,
We have
uh,
a lot of freebies on our website that answer these questions too. I just wanted to say we have a daycare and starting solids
sure.
freebie. We have how much should your little one be drinking freebie for babies and toddlers, the smoothie guide. I have so many blogs, so make sure you use the search function on eatplaysay.com and you can find what you're looking for. We have so many free resources for you.
That's a great call. Okay, so we're gonna have to move. Well, fortunately for some. Oh, yeah. So we are gonna have to go to the runner-up, which is Hillary Di Federico. So Hillary, if you could raise your hand. There you are. Okay, Hillary, congratulations. Thank
Hey.
you for sticking around to the end. We will take all of these lists, including how to microplastics, how to avoid them. All Lalo products, by the way, are PFAS free, highly tested, BPA free, PVC free. We test every non-toxic trait to make sure our products are safe of everything. So if you're ever curious about that, we have our products are tested to the highest degree. But so many great topics. We'll do that. Thank you all for joining us, but most importantly, Jordyn, thank you for all your wisdom and helping us bring our parental anxieties from here to here and give us some actionable things that we can bring into our kids' lives and to our dinner table every day.
Yeah, you're so welcome. Thanks for having me.
All right. Bye, everybody.